There's been an influx of single developer strategy games popping up towards the end of 2020, and Sumerians by THMonc Games is one of the latest, having just released on December 2nd. Taking place in ancient Mesopotamia, Sumerians is a gridless classic city builder where your focus is to build and develop your civilization from a single building to a fledgling empire, managing resources, wages, services, and production chains. Before we get into the review, in full disclosure, I did receive pre-release access to this game from the developer, which as always is greatly appreciated but does not alter my opinion of the game. It is also an early access game, meaning that both the contents of this review and the game as it currently stands is not representative of the final product, and that is always an important thing to keep in mind. Now, onto my review of Sumerians. Let's dive in. With any city building game, the user interface is crucially important. Front-end icons, text layout, information panels, they all play a very important part in the flow and management of your city. If you have to dig deep into menus to gain vital information, or certain buttons are too far removed from other UI, or even have crowded and unorganized UI, that makes it difficult for new players to easily get into your game, and that's bad news bears right off the bat. That's why I love Sumerians though. Its UI layout is very simple and very well organized. All of your essential city crucial information is located up front. Your population, your city's prosperity levels, your wealth, and the passage of time. Do you want to dig deeper? Each of those icons are actually buttons, and each will break down your city further depending on its category, so you can then manage each aspect better. From exactly how many workers you have in certain jobs, a city skyline's approach to the demand of certain zoned infrastructure, to the factors in what makes your city desirable for immigrants to come over and settle. Even with most of the micromanaging, which comes in the form of how many workers to assign to different state buildings, the developer has designed a great way to manage it with its own panel. The game can get slightly spreadsheet heavy, but for this specific type of city builder game, I find that it is necessary, well designed, and pretty dang functional. Rolling right into another one of my favorite parts of this game is just the design aesthetics of it all. It's the perfect indie style game. There's nothing incredibly flashy or revolutionarily realistic graphics wise, but there is a fantastic ancient empire feel to it. There's a wide variety of buildings through the various production chains, enough zone building variations that it doesn't feel like I'm looking at entire blocks of cookie cutter housing, and there's nothing quite so majestic as seeing those classic ancient clay-based Sumerian walls surrounding your citizens. The gridless style of gameplay is also a favorite of mine in this specific type of city builder. While it does create a bit of chaos, my cities look much more naturally expansive instead of something with just square city blocks, despite the block style layout of the zoned areas. Those zone blocks are appealing, but there are parts of it where I wish it was either modified or removed altogether. For instance, laying down state food plots is an immense pain if you're wanting a bit more realism and a natural look to your fields. I can't get too close to the river's edge since the block style won't let you place the entire thing, even if one small part has a collision issue. I would be up for either a paint style zone editor for fields or the ability to place down blocks even when there's a collision factor and it just doesn't place those individual blocks that have that collision issue. Adding a block size scale would be nice as well. There's plenty of cracks and corners where I would love to squeeze in housing to really give it that dense ancient city feel, but cannot, due to there only being one size for each of the zone sectors. Again, this is early access, so maybe there's hope for some customization in this area of the game, although it truly isn't a deal breaker, just a want rather than a need. In spite of my critiques, I love the look and feel of the city sprawl as I continue expanding. Seeing all the people walk around going about their business, the alleyways between buildings, being able to build huge temples that rise above the city, and even designing gardens and avenues with the beautification pieces currently in the game, it all strongly appeals to me as a city building strategy player, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far. Sumerian's game mechanics were one piece of the game that I had zero idea about going into it. Would it play more like the classical classics of Pharaoh and Caesar 3, or maybe a bit like Banished? Maybe even a little bit like Foundation? The answer is, well, yes. The mechanics of the game have a solid foundation and a wide range of different city building types, and they are both complex and simple at the same time. For instance, the production chains in Sumerians are pretty standard and rather simple. Mud and bricks are the building blocks to all of your buildings. You have grain for the people to survive, and they technically do not need anything else from a production standpoint to level up, which we'll get into in a minute. Your other production lines feed into a larger system, which is still rather simple to understand. Pottery and grain is needed to make beer. Flax gets made into fabric, which then is made into linen. You can craft weapons by importing metals from the port, but that so far is just used for security and not for anything specifically military related. If the production lines are simple, their purposes are a bit more complex. You see, the people don't need these products to level up, at least not yet. Rather, beer and linen is used as a salary increase, with grain being the base. That's right, there's no denarii or ducats or gold. In true historical ancient form, the people were paid in food, which I absolutely love. Adding beer and linen to the salary fold increases the efficiency of the buildings where that boost occurs, while also reducing the potential to waste resources. While the factors are extremely clear, there is a decent amount of wasted material within buildings, so the salary increase through beer and linen does make a difference, and it's a really cool mechanic to implement in a game that probably does have some historical accuracy and sets Sumerians apart from other typical ancient era city builders. But wait, there's more. Your city is divided up into private and state workers and buildings. The zoned areas I mentioned earlier, they are all private sector, meaning I cannot directly control them in any real fashion whatsoever. They will also not pay any taxes, which is in grain, unless I increase my authority in the area with temples and security buildings. It sounds weird, but that's also why we have citizens farming zones and then state fields. The state fields aren't meant as a consumable food source per se, but as our form of currency to pay the workers that work in our state-run buildings or everything that is not zoned. With all that in mind, how exactly does your private sector level up? Basically just needs to meet a range of prosperity requirements, such as having walls around it, high land value, water, security, and pretty gardens. I'm not completely sold on this model of leveling up, but I have been trained nearly my entire life that the only way to level up a building in a city builder is by providing it with better products and services. So these mechanics in Sumerians do not bug me quite as much, since it's just something pretty new to the genre. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows with Sumerians though, and I'll lead with this sentence. This is an early access game in development by a single person, so take everything I'm about to say with some leeway. Seriously. Most of the problems stem from the usual suspects, bugs, like builders not building something within their range, transporters not picking up products that have been prioritized, building collision issues where I can't build a section of wall that stems from another part already built. These are definitely frustrating to encounter, although they aren't game breaking. Then there are the unexplainable pieces of kind of text-based information. Why does it say there are 100 jobs available, but I have 200 jobless people? What do the percentages mean when a building has beer and or linen to pay the salary? The wasted material bar tells me nothing about the specifics of how much is wasted. When it comes to the private sector, what do the fields produce that the people need? The markets and industrial buildings, what are they providing? Are these buildings why we technically don't need products to level up the people? These are all pretty useful pieces of information that would help players plan for expansion or figure out problems within their own cities. And if someone understands them and you're watching this video, I would love an explanation because I'm just not understanding. Then there's the performance of the game. With the size of the maps and the density of level 3 buildings, I can easily see how a large map could sustain a population of 20,000 or heck even upwards of 30 to 40,000 people. However, at around a population of about 3,000, the game takes a huge performance hit. While I was rocking an easy 70 to 90 FPS with a smaller city, past that 3,000 to 3,500 mark, I was seeing drastic dips into the teens for FPS, which would then spike to a maximum around 40, then plummet again. With my biggest map around 6,000 people, it's not really playable, and that's extremely unfortunate. Again, this is early access, I can't stress it enough. I have no doubts that a good deal of optimization is up ahead, at least I hope so. I want to build a massive ancient city, but right now it's just not feasible in its current state. Taking all of that in, what's my verdict for Sumerians, and is it worth a buy? The reality is that it's not a simple answer, and it really boils down to some individual player factors. Sumerians is a very fun city builder. In terms of mechanics, there's almost nothing that I have true decision-breaking opinions on, and the fresh take on production and currency is a nice one. I love the feel of the gameplay as I build my ancient city from the ground up and slowly creep over the entire map. It is early access though. There's a lot that needs worked on, and once you get your production lines up and running, there's really not anything else to do but sit and watch your city grow. It's complex to a very definite point, then there's nothing really beyond that to keep the player engaged. What's in store for the future is not completely certain, but I hope there's a decent bit that will add to the experience. So here's my thinking. If you want in on a fun city builder while it's cheap, and yes, the price is going to go up the more the developer adds to this game, then I'd hop on that boat now. There's enough gameplay for $15 if you still go by that old model of time to money ratio. If all you are interested in is building a really cool looking ancient city with its own districts, customizable gardens, sweet looking temples, and just chill out and play, not worrying too much about the complexities of your city structures, or politics, or other things like that, then this is your game, and you should totally buy it. However, if you're looking for a true challenging city builder that tests your min-max while juggling gods, taxes, crime, war, trade, social classes, the seasons, etc., this is just not going to satisfy that itch really in any form, at least not yet. If you're one of those strategic city builders, I'd give it a pass. For me, I played what I need to get my fun out of it and to do this review, and then I'll sit back and wait a few more updates that add a lot more to the game before going back in. It's not a bad thing in my opinion at all, just the reality of the situation. Well done so far for Sumerians, well done. That'll be all for my review of Sumerians. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know your thoughts, good or bad, on the game as a whole, as it's just one more avenue for the developer to gain some thoughts on the future of the game. Thanks for watching, this is Havoc, and I will see you in the next video.